Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Pro Wrestling Post podcast. On this week's pod, we have
SummerSlam to be held at an empty Amway Arena.
The life and times of James Kamala Harris, remembering his life and legacy.
all that and more on this week's show. Once again, hello, everybody. Welcome to this second edition of the Pro Wrestling Post podcast. I'm Marc Blake, and as always, I have with me Mr. Pete Moon. Hi, Pete.
Hello, Marc.
How are we doing, mate? Are we all right?
Excellent, Marc.
Excellent. And as always, we have our editor-in-chief, our big head honcho. We have Mark Madison. How are we, sir?
We are doing wonderful. Hoping you guys are doing great on this Friday afternoon, evening, depending on where you're coming from.
It is Friday evening over here. I think it's Friday afternoon for you guys. Is that right? Excellent.
Sure.
A little weather update. It's just the tail end of a heat wave over here. So hopefully Ivan's not slept in 3 days. So this hopefully will not have any effect on my podcasting duties. But apart from that, it is all good. So let's crack on with the first subject. As mentioned in the open there, we have news that SummerSlam next weekend is going to be held at the empty Amway Arena. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? What do we think, guys?
We've had troubles hearing about the live event. Oh, man, I'm tripping over myself pretty hard right now.
It's all right. It's all
We've heard about the troubles that WWE have been having at live events even before the pandemic, and the lengths they went to cover that up. And I'm wondering exactly how they're gonna deal with this, considering there will be no fans in the Amway Center. What's capacity on the Amway Center?
Is it 18,000?
Yeah, 18,846 for an NBA game. Could probably fit 28,000 in there for a wrestling show.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, they won't be fitting anybody in apart from the wrestlers.
Which it's not quite as many as there used to be. But yeah, it's once again, it's the good with the bad. It's good because it's getting them out of the performance center, and that was becoming as stale as yesterday's old bread. It's bad because they're in this whacking great big arena that, apart from what have I just seen, 2,500 square foot of LED boards.
Yeah,
it's going to be as empty as anything. I mean, what can we take away from that, guys? What about you, Mark? What do you think?
Well, we were talking about this with it being the Amway Arena. I mean, there's history behind Amway, and its significance for those that maybe don't know as much. Amway supplies tons of different products. So do they replace automated people and with products to fill the arena to make it look busier, or is that just a bad idea? Maybe, probably. I don't know what
fill it up with hair dryers and boxes of makeup.
Why not? I mean, we're in a pandemic. Somebody's going to need it. Why not make it something where they could donate? I don't know, kidding aside, I don't know. We saw it at the recent AEW show. They had fans sporadically spread out. If you watched the last edition of Dynamite, does something like that become something where? How do you monitor that? Are they tested before they come in? But here it's 20,000 seats of emptiness. There's an echo. You can only hide so much. It's not a little place. So
yeah, we get that echo even in the Performance Center and at Skyway Studios, where they've been taping Impact. And at least with AEW, they have, and I guess WWE in the Performance Center, they have some people at ringside to give an atmosphere. But the thing I noticed about even in those situations is that they don't feel like a crowd. They feel like wrestlers imitating a crowd.
Yeah,
for sure, most definitely. They're conditioned the WWE way, aren't they? So they forget about the fans, and now they have to pretend to be a fan, and it shows that they are pretending. The vast majority. There's a few there which are great, but then you compare them to what's happening on AEW with Dynamite, and it's light and day. The wrestlers there that are watching the shows, it feels like they're a lot more freer to be fans rather than be scripted fans, so to speak.
But even then, they don't necessarily do certain fan things. I don't hear a lot of "this is awesome" chants or all the creative chants that we tend to get from fans coming to shows.
This is awesome. The chant that Taz loves the very, very most. Yeah. It's a hard one. Somewhere else. I'm just reading right now that this Amway Centre deal is a long-term residency. So have they given up on the PC for the rest of the year and having everything at the Amway Centre now, do you reckon?
So if you're looking at something to be long-term, then there's got to be some sort of plan long-term as to what that's going to look like. Amway's still located in Florida. Am I correct in that?
Yep. Yeah,
okay. So this is the challenge, right? Florida, I'm sure it's no secret, is probably the most affected amongst the U.S. states. Is still pretending like nothing is happening and running a show of this size, whether it's a major event. They're not going to do a house show, so these major events, is it like how much money is being generated? Does it make sense from a business standpoint? The arena's going to host this as long as I guess they can, but at the same time, you think of fans, you think of safety, you think of money, you think of it had to have been lucrative enough for the WWE to want to do that. For the Amway Center, if they're not going to get concerts or any other shows that would have been contributing, it makes sense for them to do it. Would no other states or no other country welcome that?
There was rumours that SummerSlam was going to be held on a boat, on a ship. There was rumours that it was going to go up to the northeast. Whereabouts in the northeast, I don't know. I think the general consensus was that it was going to be another arena, maybe a smaller.
We heard the rumors were that they were still trying to figure out how to have SummerSlam in Boston.
That's right, yeah.
But the governor of Massachusetts is very intent on keeping gatherings small until there's a vaccine for the virus.
And bravo for them to stand up to that, because they're thinking long term. They're not thinking about, this would be great for us to get the attention, but it went beyond money, which in entertainment is so huge. They should be kind of applauded, I think. I don't know.
It's such a difficult topic to wrap your head around because there's so much money involved that we're not going to be hearing about where it's coming from, who's getting it, how it's being used, and I think this is one of those see how SummerSlam goes at least, and then the Raw afterwards before we start speculating on further events.
Exactly. I mean, as this is well documented, I'm Mr. Positive, so. As you said, Pete, just we'll take one day at a time, basically. We will watch SummerSlam, we'll watch the Raw after, we'll see how that goes, how that's received, how the various wrestling sites will report on it, and then I'm sure they will have a backup plan if it all goes completely wrong, or they'll have a plan B if it goes really, really well.
Actually, a question just occurred to me. Why would Amway allow WWE to run in the Amway Center when there's that dangerous group Retribution on the loose?
Oh, my word.
Are they prepared for all the property damage that's going to happen? They're probably insured against it.
They don't wear masks either.
I wonder if they're going to search them as they come in for chainsaws and things of that description. Oh, but yeah, it's one of those things. Over here in the UK this weekend, the government are trialling audiences at certain sporting events. We've got the World Snooker Championships taking place at the moment. I don't know if you guys know what snooker is. It's like a long, boring version of pool. And I'm not a snooker fan. And
the only thing I know about snooker is that some of the controversies have turned out to be kind of adorable.
Yeah, that's the British way, really, isn't it? It's a British sport, really. But yeah, they're allowing some spectators into the arena. I think it holds something like 2,000, but they're only letting in 300 over the next 3 days, so 300 per day. And as long as that goes well, they're going to try and allow spectators, I think, at horse racing events, and very slowly building up. So I'm not. Could it be that they're going to? There could be like a ballot or a lottery for Orlando residents to be able to go and watch that. SummerSlam next week. It's a possibility because no information's come out just yet.
I wonder where that rumor about the boat actually came from and why that was even leaked. If it was so far from being like, I mean, we had Hog Wild that happened all those years ago, and that was outdoor and that was cool, and you had motorcycles involved and it was an outdoor event. But how safe would have even having an event on a boat even have been?
Well, just ask Chris Jericho.
True. Yeah.
It seems like a scenario where they'd have to test everyone who comes aboard.
Yeah.
But hey, that's SummerSlam done. That's the news so far. Obviously, it's breaking as we're recording right now. So hopefully, more information will be with you guys and girls when you listen to this. So, what did you want to talk about there, Pete? I know you spoke to me earlier. What was this topic you wanted to talk about?
Impact Emergence is on this Tuesday, and part 2 will be next Tuesday. And we have some of the card for that show, at least the card for night 1. We have Eddie Edwards defending in the Open Challenge in the main event. Moose will defend his TNA World Heavyweight Championship against Trey Miguel. Kylie Ray and Taya Valkyrie in a Wrestle House match. And the Good Brothers, Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows versus Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. Any thoughts about that?
Well, people that obviously heard us talk last week about Talking Shop and Mania know that I have a bit of a soft spot for the Good Brothers. And seeing them against Ace Austin and Madman Fulton has piqued my interest. I'm 100% certain. I'm sure Marc has done an interview with Madman Fulton a few years ago. Is that right, Marc?
Sorry?
You did a interview with Madman Fulton?
I did. It was fortunate. But this took place just after his time with NXT when he left. And him showing up at Impact was not something anyone expected, and though him arriving was a nice fit, right? But excited about this card. I mean, sorry, I apologize. I've actually tried to watch a little bit of the highlights, and the video keeps popping in audio, so I'm trying to watch it quietly.
I forgot. Motor City Machineguns versus the North for the Impact Tag Team Championship.
Oh, wow.
That's good. Their first match was pretty good.
Motor City Machineguns, always fun. It's been quite a while since we've seen them, since they left TNA. We were saying about the Good Brothers. I'm really excited to see how they figure into the tag division going forward, especially because this is a tag division that seems to be growing, and it's a tag division that has now 3 at least of some of the best tag teams in the industry right now.
Who would you class as those teams then, Pete?
The North, I absolutely love Josh Alexander and Ethan Page. I see them at Alpha One all the time. Here's hoping Alpha One has shows soon. I enjoy, like I said, the Motor City Machineguns. They're back. They're on a roll. And of course, the Good Brothers.
I mean, the Machine Guns, when they came back, they just have not missed a step.
Not at all. And we saw Alex Shelley back in the Dusty Rhodes Classic when he was tagging with Kushida, and for a guy who's getting up there, he's not lost a step at all.
It's just insane.
And he stepped away for a little while to pursue education, and
no rust showing at all.
No. So with the show being over 2 nights, Pete, is it expected to be over 2 nights or?
It was announced as taking place over 2 nights, which makes me wonder why they front-loaded all the championship matches.
They announced things for the second night, or do you think that's going to come out?
I think that's going to come out on when we. It's going to come out on Tuesday. Sorry, I've been an absolute mess. I've also missed the X Division Championship match. Chris Bay versus TJP versus Rohit Raju.
Oh, TJP, the little bit of a heat magnet at the moment online.
What's been happening there?
I think he was. I'm sure it was along the lines that he knew his worth. He knew he was the best wrestler in the world, and he knew his worth and all this kind of stuff. And people were like, "Well, you haven't really shown much." And he was like, "Well, screw you." I'm sure it was along those lines. But I could be wrong. I probably am wrong. Listen to my wife too much. It's all right. I can diss her on here. She doesn't listen to this. That triple threat for the X Division. I mean, X Division matches are always fun, but a triple threat. I mean, Chris Bay, another guy that has been interviewed for Pro Wrestling Post. Every time I see him, he just excels just that little bit more. He's a talent, very, very huge talent, major upside.
I'm excited for this match because when I think of the X Division, especially when I was watching in the mid to late 2005, the X Division was one of the parts of one of the features of TNA that really captured my attention. With all the crazy acrobatics and the lack of a weight limit and all these cool things that were happening. And I remember the triple threat matches were where the X Division really shined. And if we're going to be bringing some prestige, some interest back into Impact as a brand, that bringing back the action that used to happen in the X Division is a great decision.
Definitely. I mean, I was very lucky. TNA toured over here in the UK. Oh my word! I don't know when I saw them. It's about 9 years ago now, and they had an Ultimate X match. I can't remember every single competitor, but AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels were two competitors, and these two put on one hell of a show. And my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, had no interest in wrestling, and even she walked away saying, wow, if wrestling was that good each and every day, she would watch it all the time. And as you said, they're slowly bringing back that excitement to the division. They're bringing back the action, the unpredictability that, is what X Division is known for.
Can you pick a winner? Can you pick a winner out of this?
Ooh. You see, that's the thing is I have to balance who I think is going to win and who I want to win. And
always the favorite. So please steer both, because then it gives us perspective of being a fan and then looking at something a little more critically too.
I personally would very much like TJP to win. I liked his work in WWE, and I finding out that he was one of the many faces to play Suicide over the years. Had kind of made me realize that he was one of those people who I'd been seeing quite regularly for some time before I even knew who they were. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like finding out that Orange Cassidy was Fire Ant. It's like really really seeing and understanding the talent that he has to go out there and be doing that kind of stuff. However, from a booking decision, I think Chris Bay, he only won the championship at Slammiversary, and if we want to keep him looking strong, looking like he deserves this championship, it's going to have to be him walking away from this as the winner.
Yeah, I second that totally. I mean, I'm going to expect
I had a funny suicide story if you're interested.
Say that again?
For Pete, I had a funny suicide story if you're interested.
Go right ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to deviate from the topic, but when you mentioned TJP playing, so had the chance to talk to Frankie Kazarian, and flat out said, so playing Suicide, flat out denied it. He said, Not only did he flat out deny it, he said that Suicide was played by Angelina Love and Samoa Joe. There is audio somewhere, maybe even in a past podcast edition, where readers could actually access it. It could have been a funnier moment if I had planned it. It's like he knew it right away, and he had no problem saying, nope, wasn't me. So it remains a mystery. It was not Frankie Kazarian. Scout's honor.
Kayfabe's alive, brother.
For sure.
Who's Kayfabe?
She's my local baker. So what else on this first night card? Is there anything else on there? I mean, Moose and Trey Miguel. Trey's another guy that's just upped his game in the last month, 6 weeks, and Moose is entertaining as hell. He's a guy that 2 years ago I couldn't care less about, and now since he's found this TNA World Heavyweight Championship lying around, he has been entertaining as hell. So this could be a very good match.
Yeah, when I think of Moose, I'm remembering some of his early times with Impact, back when they were sort of still rebranding. And I remember him as someone who had a lot of charisma, but seemed to be held back by being the big guy. And seeing him come out with all of this ridiculous TNA World Heavyweight Championship stuff is like seeing him finally come into his own.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Marc?
I find it interesting, and so this could be completely coincidental, and you tell me what you guys think on it. So Moose is not a proponent of intergender wrestling at all. Doesn't like it, doesn't support it, doesn't agree to it, did not hide that fact. Who's the last TNA heavyweight champion?
Tessa Blanchard, for those who might not know.
Exactly. Who was a proponent of intergender wrestling?
Tessa Blanchard.
There you go. So I don't know if one is a direct dig at the other or not, but the timing is peculiar. It could be nothing and just totally be coincidental.
The way I understand it was that Tessa was supposed to be present for not Emergence. What was the other one earlier this year?
It was Anniversary, wasn't it?
No, it was the other. It was the other. The one before that, just after the pandemic struck. Rebellion.
There you go.
That was the one. Impact Rebellion. Tessa Blanchard was supposed to be present for Impact Wrestling Rebellion to defend the Impact World Championship against Moose and Michael Elgin. And she was unable to make it due to travel restrictions. And that was when they introduced Moose as the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, just to give them a belt in the main event.
All proponents in that match had a controversial tie-in. Michael Elgin, Tessa Blanchard, and I mean, not to a lesser extent Moose, really not even so much controversial. It's just interesting how it all kind of came together.
Yeah, how that played out moving forward.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a rib to start with that's just snowballed into what it is now. And if it is, kudos, it's all for the fans anyway. We all know the ins and outs now. With the amount of news that comes out, we all know the ins and outs. So if it is a rib, it's fantastic. If it's not, then they've made chicken salad out of whatever,
And
even with you and I today, Marc.
It was very tasty as well. The wife made chicken salad for dinner, and it was very, very tasty. So I've got to say that she's just walked past. So for night 2, which will be 2 weeks Tuesday, so you've got Deonna Purrazzo against Jordynne Grace in a 30-minute Iron Woman match. That's got hard hitting all over it for me.
Especially when you have someone who's a powerhouse like Jordynne Grace and someone with the technical skills of Deonna Purrazzo. That's just the kind of match that I think the Iron Man matches was built for.
Yeah, definitely, most definitely. Where do you see that going, or is that a silly question?
I honestly think that Deonna Purrazzo will probably come out on top, but I feel like there'll be some shenanigans along the way. Like I'm remembering that 30-minute Iron Man match was it the hour-long Iron Man match between Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle that happened on SmackDown?
SmackDown, yes, good memory.
But I'm remembering that one just because of the Brock Lesnar taking the chair shot, or giving Angle the chair shot early on and capitalizing on that later to win.
Yeah,
because that's something I don't think we've seen happen again.
I mean, that was what, 15 years ago, if that,
even more probably.
Yeah. So yeah, what's new is old, and what's old is new. So they could be. I mean, if this does come to pass, we're both, me and Marc, are going to both tap you up next week for inside scoop on next week's Impact. So just be warned.
Oh, the troubles with clairvoyance. Once you can see the future, everyone wants to know everything.
And yourself, Marc, can you pick a winner?
I'm going to agree with Pete on this. I definitely see it being Prazzo retaining. I don't know so much about Shenanigans being a part of it. I think, if anything, it's a definite statement, and it really secures Deonna as finally being somebody that has all this skill, all this ability, and yet not gotten those opportunities, and now the opportunity is here. I don't think there's been much made about the length of her contract. I think she's per appearance, unless I misunderstood that, or that was more rumor. And
I believe that was rumor. That was what was going on before she left for WWE. She was there on a per appearance basis, and then now that she's no longer under contract with WWE, she was free to sign with Impact.
Okay. So now it's not per appearance. She's under contract.
She's under contract with Impact Wrestling.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, I kind of still stand by her retaining. I just don't think it needs to be underhanded. I think she came in, she kicked butt. She definitely made a statement right upon crossing paths with Jordynne. I just think if they're going to go with this virtuosa persona that is straight ahead, it kind of deviates from being that straight ahead character if you're going to have to use underhanded methods or somebody else. Unless the underhanded is to introduce somebody else, like Lufisto comes in and who has a history with Jordynne Grace. I think that might not be a bad thing, because that's a story that never fully got its end. And if anybody's seen those two in the past,
it's what's the old saying? Anything's possible in a wrestling ring. So you never know. You never know. Just to change tack slightly there, we everyone in the wrestling world this week, we lost someone last Sunday, James Harris, who many of you will hopefully know as Kamala. He unfortunately passed away last Sunday. Marc wrote a piece chronicling his life and times in and outside the wrestling ring. Marc, just exactly how important is Kamala and to the business?
His importance as a character, it's I'd say iconic in him coming up in the 80s. I can't speak for Pete, but I would think that part of your and my childhood was remembering this giant who was a savage, never spoke a word, you never heard him say anything. He had a handler, and it was frightening, and we were threatened by him. And to know that as a main event talent who had featured matches with Hulk Hogan and countless others, to not be rewarded is a shame.
You mentioned Kamala as being part of my experience in wrestling. He would have been a little bit before my time. I remember him as kind of a comedic presence. But upon hearing of his passing, I went looking through some of his older work, and I find it interesting to see the depth that he was able to reach with that character outside of WWE. Because if you look at some of the stuff he did in Florida and Tennessee, sometimes he comes off as genuinely threatening and frightening. And I think that was a part that we didn't really get all of in the World Wrestling Federation.
No, agreed. When you see him, you see the frightening character, but then you could see this larger man that's having to play timid and cower because he's vulnerable and taking advantage of by people. It almost seems like it's a reflection of his life. Like Vince gave him these opportunities, earned money from him, and then here he is living out being weak because somebody's just used him. But it's actually playing out where he's frightened and he's scared, and you feel bad now for the Giant, right?
Which is
because he's still a person.
Which is a thing that we didn't get so very often from the foreign heels in wrestling.
No.
To hear about the struggles he had later in life was also very, very touching and concerning at some parts. Sort of all the financial struggles and seeing how kind of spat out he was by the wrestling industry once he wasn't able to perform anymore.
That's unfortunately the nasty side of the wrestling industry. There's plenty of stories out there of ex-wrestlers who have fallen on hard times or illness, and I think shunned is too much of a strong word, but you definitely get the feeling that more can have been done to help James and many others in that situation towards the end there. Okay,
when remembering his life, it's like Pete was referring to, right? His health was a concern. He lost both both of his legs to amputation due to diabetes. Now being diagnosed with COVID, passing away, unfortunately, from cardiac arrest, and it will be diagnosed or recognized as a COVID death, even though he had a heart attack. Even in death, it seems like nothing is simple when it's come to his life. And to really think back, it's almost like all these things are weaved together, and yet there was a time he was jaded from the business. He stepped away. After leaving in '93, he wanted nothing to do with wrestling. He didn't watch it. And then the opportunity came to be part of the Dungeon of Doom, and he was brought in as part of Kevin Sullivan's crew, right, in '95. And then from there, that was it, right? He had gimmick battle royals or one-offs, but it wasn't seem like it was something that was a focal point. He was fine to even move on with his life. Truck driver, but yeah, it's sad to see that. And imagine what could have been if he was used and earned the money and gained the respect, especially in today's day and age where racism is being fought and major changing of the wrestling landscape should be changed. It was pretty telling.
Yeah, definitely makes your heart go out to his family and to other wrestlers who find themselves in similar scenarios, being kind of left to rot after your time has come.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very sad end to a great career, and all of us here at Pro Wrestling Post send our condolences to James's family.
Yes.
So from one wrestler from the past, let's talk about a manager from the past. Marc, you hinted last week that we had a piece going out about a wrestling manager from the past, and it did really well, didn't it, Marc?
It really did. If you hadn't checked out the site this past week, Jim Phillips produced Slick the Doctor Style. It is the next in our series of managers of wrestling's past. It chronicles his early life to his career in the WWE, his connections with different talent, and just a total character. I as a kid, I would do that whole jive so bro dance, and it was funny, and it was probably meant to be funny. I don't know if it's as funny today as it probably was then, but it wasn't intended to be hurtful or offensive. It was just meant to be fun, and uh, he was a manager of lots of guys, not really champions, but lots of different guys, and he was a great focal point to kind of for those that weren't as strong on the mic, and it was always a great read. If you get a chance, please go over, check it out. Slick, managers of our wrestling's past, or of wrestling's past. It's the latest part in our origin series.
I was surprised to find out that that Slick is the son of legendary Rufus R. Jones.
Yeah.
And oh man, he definitely got his father's tongue, because Rufus R. Jones, another man who was excellent on the mic, and oh yeah, just those promos Slick could cut.
Well, it's funny that you said that, because that was almost verbatim one of the statements that Jim makes, is like right from his mummy's. As soon as he came out, he had the gift of gab almost from birth. So it's definitely that it was genetic.
Or something he picked up from just having his dad around all the time. Mm-hmm. Being around someone who is just that charismatic.
I was introduced to Slick when he formed the Twin Towers over here in the UK. And I've not long watched the film Airplane. Do you two know the film Airplane?
I do know the film Airplane.
So there's a scene in that where there's the two Jive Soul brothers, and they're talking jive, and the air stewardess just hasn't got a clue, and then all of a sudden she'll start talking. And seeing Slick talk, it just reminded me of Airplane. I just thought Airplane was a rib. I didn't know it was real. You know, people like that spoke at the time. And watching Slick do the talking with the boss man and Akeem behind it or to the side, and I was just enthralled, absolutely enthralled. And the piece that Jim wrote, it really was very well thought out, well written, and it just brought back so many memories. And I hope that that's the whole point of these origins. Just bring back some fuzzy, warm memories. How about that?
Agreed.
So, Slick, let's jump to a different continent. Let's go to Japan. What else did we put up last week, Marc?
We had a wonderful piece from one of our roving Purusu. I'm going to make sure that I pronounce it correctly. Pete, that's where I defer to you, my friend.
Puroresu.
Puroresu, which is Japanese wrestling stated in Japanese. I need to really brush up on that. Last week, or this past week, we had what is the latest in our Trailblazers series, the fourth of the pillars, Mr. Toshiaki Kawada? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Kawada.
Sorry?
Toshiaki Kawada.
Toshiaki Kawada. Look at that. One of considered the most dangerous man in Japanese wrestling. Some will argue where he ranks. I know Alex will definitely state that Mr. Kobashi is his top. He's the pillar of the pillars, with Tao being the fourth. Where does Kawada rank in your estimation, Pete?
Toshiaki Kawada is the one pillar of heaven who scared me. I think of all of them, he was the one who, like you said, he was the one who came across as more dangerous, more vicious, and really just the one guy I didn't want to mess with at all. Because it felt like Kobashi had a sense of humor about him, and Misawa was just fantastic. But Kawada came across as the one who could really hurt you.
See, this is way out of my comfort zone. So I will just defer to you two guys when in this conversation. But reading the piece and reading the pieces that have come out about the four pillars so far has really made me want to go back and just check all this out, because this is just fascinating. This is wrestling that I hadn't really seen before. obviously I've seen Strong Style, but to this and the backstory to everything and the politics, you wouldn't think of politics in Japanese wrestling, and yet they had so much politics. It was a really great read, much recommended.
Well, I think between that and the site's introduction to Joshi and really becoming a resource, and I think that's part of where we see the vision being, is that if we're a resource, we're becoming educated on it because we entrust those that are, like Pete's going to share something eventually that's going to be pretty special and is educating and enlightening, much like you shared, Marc, with the passing of Rollerball, right? I think if we're all teaching each other, we all become better for it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I like to write. I like to be entertained. I like to be informed. So if I can do that, then to everyone else, then my job's pretty much done. And surrounding us, I know it sounds like a complete advert here or an ad for the site, but we all in our group chat, our super secret group chat on Facebook, we are all talking and informing each other and educating each other all the time about things of different facets of wrestling. It's great. It really is.
Agreed.
Yes, one of the great parts about writing for here and writing with all the other staff is that we all have our areas of expertise and everyone really gets to learn something from working here.
Indeed. See, I said it last week. I'll say it again. We entertain and we educate. Look at that. Well, that could be a strap line. That would be very good. So from things that we've put out so far, what about a few things we've got coming forward? You hinted there about Pete's piece, which I'm dying to read because, you tell us all about it, Pete.
I'm doing a Trailblazers piece on the exotic Adrian Street. One of the great gender bending wrestlers in the history of the sport. Really excited to see some of his stuff because as much as I do enjoy some of the earlier wrestling stuff, I was not as familiar with Adrian Street's work. But he was a name that I heard all the time, and finally getting around to seeing what he was able to do with that gimmick and hearing about how that gimmick came about was even quite fascinating because I had figured that from Gorgeous George to Adrian Street would have been a straight line, but it was not like that at all. And to see the legacy of his so clearly is just fascinating.
Super excited to read it, Pete. Super excited.
And that will be out sometime this week. I'm not going to say when, because that's just giving the game away. So just keep watching our socials and you will find out when it's posted. Also out this week, I think actually it's out tomorrow at the time of recording, which is Saturday for you guys. We have another Shark Tale, don't we, Marc?
We certainly do. Where we talked a lot about the WWE, but Mr. Andrew Carter, retired Andrew the Shark Andrew Carter, is going to share about his experience with the WWE and how that all came about. Training, always a fun read, always fun reading his tales. You'll get to experience what he experienced tomorrow.
Yep, that's tomorrow. I edited that piece, so I have had a quick sneaky peek, and as usual, as you said, entertaining as always. And I think there's quite a few name drops there, isn't there, Marc?
There certainly is. Wow. Yeah.
Shoulders with some pretty special stars. But you'll read all about that tomorrow, or by the time you've heard this, you've read it already. Also out this week is my second ECW show from 1995. I reviewed the Return of the Funker, and surprisingly, it's headlined by the return of Terry Funk. How about that? It's a very good show. It's a very violent show. There's a barbed wire baseball bat match, which... Well, I hope you've got a strong stomach. That's all I'm going to say. If you watched it, or you can just read my review and be a bit better on the palate. It's a very good read. It's out. I'm going to say that because I wrote it. So there. But it's out this Sunday, and hope you enjoyed it. I got a lot of great feedback from my first piece, which is always good to hear. I had people reach out to me and say how they enjoyed it, and it's pushed me to carry on and do the rest. So that's out this Sunday, and that is about it for things this week. We're just going to hark back very, very quickly to last week, where you may remember we spoke about the first episode of Raw Underground, and we had the second episode of Raw Underground this week, folks.
I was just about to mention that because I had it on my notes, and it's the only thing I haven't ticked off yet.
I was leaving that till last.
Those are, by the way, my notes should be distinguished from the notorious notes, which are Nick Radford's notes, which you can find on the Pro Wrestling Post site. How's that for a plug?
Look at that.
That's a segue. Look at that. So, after last week and our optimism for Raw Underground.
Sorry, man.
What?
I'm just so impressed by that. That was so well done. I'm clapping over here.
Oh my god. So, folks, after last week's debut episode of Raw Underground, and I think we had a little bit of optimism, what do we think after the second episode? Pete, you hit me with it. Come on.
It's definitely coming across as a way to get people who otherwise wouldn't be on TV. Like, I don't think we would have been hearing much from Riddick Moss if it weren't for Raw Underground. And in that context, I think it's all right. We're still no closer to finding out what it's leading up to, or indeed why Shane is running it. But I think as a way of getting people on TV and putting over Dabba-Kato, it's working just fine.
Yeah, I hate to say it again, but it's definitely got potential. What say you, Marc?
I'm still a little confused if the idea is that it's supposed to be weaved in. Is the idea that it's always supposed to be weaved in and that it's a segment? Because how is that any different than Ms. TV, which is a segment? It's just, oh, by the way, we're going to go to Raw Underground, this gym that's happening behind the scenes, but it's supposed to be fake. And I think the criticism around it, I get, especially, like, I think Medusa came out more recently and had issue with the go-go dancers that are part of it. Like, and there's like, are we going to pick apart what's wrong with it? Do we want something different? You get something different. Now, I don't mind it, but I'm a little confused with, I think as you guys have referred, where is it headed? What's the long-term plans for it? And I guess maybe that's part of being fans, is right. We just kind of sit and wait.
It's definitely, possibly, hopefully, some of that long-term storytelling you were talking about last week. But what annoys me the most is that, as Pete just said, it's and yourself, there's no. It doesn't feel any different to any other segment that the show has done. If it was, how can I put it? If it was across the street, and all of a sudden they've hijacked the feed and they're showing this, that makes more sense than, well, next on is Raw Underground, and now cut to it. It doesn't feel different. It feels very much stale. But what they're doing there is different. As Pete said, they're elevating talent. Did you see Shayna Baszler this week?
You took on 3 women. Yes, I did.
That's the best thing she has done since she's been called up. And she's had championship matches. They showcased her like the complete badass that she is, like she was in NXT before they watered her down when they brought her up. If they're going to keep doing that, not just for Baszler, but for, as you said, Riddick Moss. Who else was on there? Was it Rias? I can't think of the one. And Dabba-Kato. it's a way of elevating. Let's keep that going, but try and make it different to what Raw is itself. It's different because it's held in a ring with no ropes, but it's still a segment, as Marc has put.
Like, do we completely forget that the Hurt Business completely obliterated everybody? That means nothing anymore. That happened last week.
Were they out buying new suits? Were they just out for a bite to eat? What were they doing? They weren't there. After the way it finished last week, they just was not on the show at all. There's no continuity, and Kevin Dunn and his once again with his insane need for 30,000 cuts in 3 seconds makes people feel sick. That's the downside. The upside is everything that I just mentioned with the Baszlers, with the Mosses, Applicatos. It's got potential, but there's only so long that I'm talking for myself here. There's only so long that we're going to give it before we go, do you know what? Nah, we're done. Thank you very much. So how long do you reckon it's going to be before people start, if they already are saying that?
And that's kind of a thing that we're seeing a lot online with the criticism about it, is that it all seems so directionless, and that it seems to be incongruous with everything else that they're putting out. I think some of those could be excused if we had some more direction for where this was going.
Yes. Again, with Vince and his genius, he thinks that maybe we don't need to be told where it's going. We should just enjoy the ride and all that. But no, we do need. It's like going to a cinema and watching a film and not knowing the plot or anything else. We're just shown things and supposed to go, yes, okay, not a problem. That's how I kind of feel with this, and I'm hoping, Mr. Positive, that we're going to get there at some point soon. Ugh. Whether we do or not, I don't know. This is Vince. This is WWE. It's his baby. But hey ho, it's all out for interpretation. What say you, Marc?
Much like you, man. I'm in the same boat. I hope for the best. Proceed with caution. Don't know what to expect. But at the same time, I think the look is interesting. Maybe that's the optimistic part. If it's going to elevate, okay. But if it's not going to be tied to something bigger, why doesn't it just go straight to the network? Why doesn't it, just like NXT was like, if you wanted your subscription, you had to watch NXT. You wanted to watch NXT, you had to get your WWE Network card. You had to make sure that you're watching it. Well, now they've changed to the USA Network. Anybody in the US can watch it. Both yourself in the UK and us here in Canada, we're affected by watching it live. I feel a disconnect with NXT. If this was a must-watch show that was lots of segments still weaved in and storytelling and interviews and all of that with the look, it might be something else entirely. Oh, you want to check out Raw Underground? They're like a buzz that's created around it, but it's not weaved into Raw. It's kind of like what the cruiserweights. We both. I don't know about anybody else. I enjoyed watching 205 live, but when you mix the cruiserweights in at the end of a show, are you less likely to watch it? Well, I tell you, the crowds were half empty at 10 o'clock for that third hour when that's on. Maybe that's something that they do with Raw Underground. Maybe that's somewhere that they should push it. Maybe it goes straight to the network, and then there's this build. And then they release clips trying to build buzz around it. But weaving it in on the third hour in the midst of a pandemic, where if you're going to go cinematic, go all out, make it cinematic, but make it a feature on something where people have to go to the network to watch.
So do you remember when WWE bought WCW and they were going to float the idea of having the second hour of Raw being Nitro? So is that what you're trying to say? They should have like maybe the last half an hour of the show be Raw Underground?
No, because I don't know if it would work for a live crowd. I'm actually saying separate it entirely. And that would have been a problem because we can see how 205 Live's ratings were always low because the crowds in attendance generally are younger, their families, right? At 10 o'clock, that third hour where all those young kids, where all the kids are watching it, they're tired. They're going to school the next day. I can't speak for it in the UK, but here, they're generally going to float out. You're going to lose your audience. So you're going to lose your audience, and you know it's not live. You're looking at a half-empty crowd. People aren't connected to the characters. On NXT, it's a smaller venue. The energy is high. If they did that with 205 Live, it might have been different. Could they have done something like that with Raw Underground? Maybe that would make it mean more, is that it's its own separate, I wouldn't say brand, but show, something. Maybe there's a fight that actually happens in the parking lot, but it's part of the show. Like I don't know if that's making much sense, but it makes it different.
Yeah, and I think the thing about it, having the idea of having Raw Underground as a show with a crowd kind of doesn't make sense to me. And I think with it being kind of this underground thing where the only people there are the people who want to be involved with it, I think that kind of alleviates some of the pressure of having to have an audience present.
Right.
But we've been talking about all these other ideas, and as we're talking, I'm just coming up with all these other ideas about how this could be made to work. We talked about the Hurt Business showing up and just wrecking house on that first episode. Why can't they come back and say finance it the way Ted DiBiase did with the New World Order? Why not have WWE Underground as its own show? Why not have all these other things that would have made it a little more palatable, maybe given us a little more idea of where it's going, but instead we just have this another segment on Raw.
Yeah, it's definitely we're being dangled with the carrot, but we don't know if that makes sense. We're being
we know
told...
that there's something on a stick. We're not sure it's a carrot.
Could rhyme with stick. You never know. Yeah. So okay, guys. Are we going to talk about this next week? Are we still positive that it's going to do something, or have we started to wane off it a little bit?
I think this is going to be one of those things we set aside because there'll be something more interesting. I think they'll probably pay off some ideas about what's going on with Retribution before we have any direction for Raw Underground.
So unless Mr. Lesnar makes an unscheduled appearance at Raw Underground, we're just leaving it alone for a bit, yeah?
Yeah.
Or any UFC star, for that matter, right? It could be, if there's that relationship with a major MMA star coming in, hey, King Velasquez, that did not go over well, sadly, but that's injury and those other things aside. Yeah, much like you said, like if it's tied to something bigger, we'll invest it. I'm with you guys on that.
Right, so we are drawing a line under it, folks. We will not talk about it next week unless, like I said, Lesnar comes back and kicks everyone's ass. I think that is it, folks. Just want to say once again, fantastic time here chatting with my buds about one of my favourite subjects. If anyone would like to hit us up, where would people find you, Marc?
You would be able to connect with me personally if you wanted. On Instagram, you've got a Pro Wrestling Post. That's our Instagram page. One of two Twitter handles at the Marc Madison. That's one. Or our site Twitter handle at Pro Wrestling PST. And you can also find us on Facebook. And we have a Facebook page where you can access us as well. So, yeah.
And yourself, Mr. Moon, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Pete Probably. You could also send me mail to number 1, Just Past the Ridge, Cydonia, Mars.
Somebody, please. Somebody out there, listen to this. You need to DM Pete and ask him about his Twitter handle, okay? Because I've said this a week ago and no one's done it yet. So this is a challenge for you guys. Ask him about his Twitter handle. I'm Marc Blake. You can find me at Marc Blake PST on Twitter. And that's about it. But just before I go, a little story. Funnily enough, this is not my day job. I do have a proper day job where I deliver groceries to people. And I deliver to somebody that knows me from my ring announcing days. and chatting away to him and everything else. Every time I go there, he draws me a picture. And I've got all these pictures. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll see I post the pictures on there each and every time I see him. And I turned up today and gave him his shopping, his food, groceries. And he gave me the picture, which I will post again, not long after this goes live, of me recording this podcast. His name is Super Owen, and he's the most awesome dude in the world. Read my Twitter, because I can't really talk about him without getting upset. So read my Twitter, where I can write about him and forward you his Twitter handle, and you can see the amount of amazing charity work that he does. And Owen, thank you for the pictures. Thank you for listening, and keep up the damn good work, dude. And on that note, it is time to say goodbye. So we will see you this time next week. Adios, folks.